Hello, my name is Kelly Kelly. Welcome to the NICU Now audio support series. I am a NICU parent to Jackson, a micro-preemie born at 24 weeks, and Lauren, a late-term preemie born at 34 weeks. I am also the founder and executive director of Hand to Hold, a national nonprofit dedicated to providing education, resources, and peer-to-peer support to families that have experienced premature birth, the loss of a baby, or have a child with a special healthcare need. Hand to Hold's NICU Now audio support series was developed to help NICU parents navigate their NICU journey. Historically, bed rest has been a common treatment for a variety of pregnancy ailments and is prescribed at varying levels of activity restriction. Sometimes, activity is only decreased for a period of time, while in other cases, the guidelines are stricter, with limited mobility and activities. Overall, bed rest is usually prescribed in the hopes of preventing or decreasing issues that could result in the loss of pregnancy or premature birth of a baby. Even though research over the years has shown that bed rest increases blood flow to the placenta, it hasn't provided definitive evidence that bed rest decreases the risk of premature birth, resulting in doctors rarely recommending bed rest for most conditions. However, there are those cases in which bed rest is still prescribed, and these women need support and resources. Bed rest was never prescribed with my own pregnancies, but Hand to Hold has worked with many women who have experienced bed rest with one or more pregnancies. A bed rest diagnosis can result in many challenges for not only the mom, but the entire family. However, there are resources and support systems in place that women can access in order to ease their bed rest journey. Here to discuss this issue with me today is Darline Turner. Darline is a nationally certified physician assistant, clinical exercise physiologist, writer, and health educator. She is the owner of Darline Turner Enterprises Incorporated. Through this parent company, she founded Mamas on Bed Rest and Beyond, a support, education, and resource service for high-risk pregnant women. She most recently launched Healing Hands Community Doula Project in order to provide doula childbirth education and breastfeeding support services to Black women who may not be able to otherwise afford childbearing support. Darline has dedicated her career to empowering women to make wise healthcare choices. Welcome, Darline. We're so glad to have you.
Hey, how are you?
I am great. We have known each other for quite some time, and
Crazy.
I have turned to you many times to ask for information and support for moms on bed rest. So I'm so glad to have you here so we can share that perspective with such a wide audience. I imagine there are going to be many women who are on bed rest that will be tuning in to learn from you, like I said, from your personal and professional perspective.
Good. I'm glad I'm here, ready to share. I'm excited.
Good. Well, let's start with what brought you to want to share information about bed rest to help women specifically who are on bed rest.
Her name is Vanessa. She is my now 15-year-old daughter that I had 15 years ago. Okay. But when I was having her, it was just a miserable pregnancy. I love her dearly, but I often say it was just horrendous having her. And, you know, from all-day sickness, all 9 months, to her coming early, to kind of a crash C-section, to having some bleeding in between and cramping. And I mean, it was just everything. And having no support and asking my OB, well, what should I be doing here? And she would just look at me kind of like, well, I don't know. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't know? You're my obstetrician. And realizing there wasn't a lot of resources for women on bed rest. You know, I know it's a lot different now. There's Baby Center, there are, you know, different online communities. But way back in early 2000s, there was nothing. And it was mind-blowing because as a physician assistant, and I would say I'm fairly computer savvy, I mean, I was searching, digging, and there just wasn't anything to say, move your muscles this way, or, call this person, or you can get home health here. There was nothing. And I just found that staggering. I just found it staggering.
So you took a negative personal experience and have turned it into a positive to provide support to other moms. So let's talk about that a little bit. Tell us, what does Moms on Bed Rest and Beyond do? What are some of the support and services that you provide?
It has really evolved. It blows my mind, actually, when I think about it now. Because when I started, I really was thinking, I'll just go help some other moms. I'll just stop by. And I started it after I had my son, because I had my daughter and then I had these little people. But I would go to people's houses, sometimes even with Miles strapped onto me, and, clean a woman's house, or, go buy groceries for her, because, people don't understand, when you're on bed rest, you really can't do anything. And I mean, for some women, it's even, they can't even shower. Now, it just boggles the mind. So little things that we take for granted, going to the bank, going to the post office, picking up dry cleaning, you just can't do. And sometimes your spouse, they are well-meaning, they're working their tails off, but they're also working their full-time job and then trying to come home and do all these other things. So I started by just really being, kind of mom's best girlfriend, coming over and doing those things. And then I just realized I really needed to give it some structure. So that's when I kind of spun off Mamas on Bed Rest from my original company. And it's become even now more of like the childbirth education, because, ladies on bed rest don't get to go to childbirthing classes.
Goodness,
we forget about that.
I haven't thought about that.
We don't get to go to the hospital and do the childbirthing classes. And you can have a lactation consultant, but there are often those classes before you have the baby. Well, you don't get to go to those. So I've started trying to provide either online or one-on-one, or sometimes I'll do a group of ladies, like a conference call, the things that, I don't want to say a normal pregnancy because that sounds horrible, but an uncomplicated pregnant woman just kind of goes and does. She may go to the Y, she goes to mommy yoga, she does all of these things that a woman on bed rest just doesn't get to do. And so I started providing those services. And then from there, I would have women prenatal, and then they would say, well, can you come by after I have the baby? So I was doing postpartum services, which is great. And then just last year, I went ahead and I thought, well, I've been there before, I've been there after, let's be there in the middle. So now I do full spectrum doula services from pregnancy all the way through.
Wonderful. Well, talk to us a little bit about some of the challenges that are common when you're on bed rest. I know that there are medical complications that can arise, such as blood clots and depression and anxiety and things like that. Can you talk to us about some of the common things that moms on bed rest need to be concerned about, and make sure that they're asking the right questions and getting the right information and support?
So physically, you want to be aware of, even though you're on bed rest, a lot of women still end up with high blood pressure, which it seems almost counterintuitive. You're like, I'm on bed rest, why do I have high blood pressure? But they do. Lower extremity swelling, swollen ankles. So, and the problem with that is, as you said, the blood clots. Because you're not moving around, you're not getting the circulatory, the regular circulation. So blood's going down to your feet, but it's not coming back up to your heart as readily as when you're walking around. So, you have to be concerned about that. You have to move around. That's why, and ages ago, I made Bed Rest Fitness and have videos and things to just like wiggle your toes and move your legs, because you have to have some way to send that blood back upwards, or it's going to pool, and then you have to worry about blood clots. Just lower body, or actually all over body aches from some women are prescribed where they have to lay on their left side all day, every day, which is just, it sounds like, that's not so bad, I'm in bed. No, because after a while, that one side gets kind of worn down. You can get pressure sores and things like that. The depression is real. 1 in 8 women on bed rest will experience a perinatal mood disorder, and that can be anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder. It can be frank depression. So, it's really, really hard. So many people think, oh, I would love to be on bed rest. Well, you don't want to be on bed rest 26 weeks. I mean, some women are on bed rest for months before their pregnancy. And it's hard because it's not like you're on vacation. It's not like you can rest and then get up and go do something. You can't even go get your own sandwich. I mean, so it's really a difficult process. And it can be depressing, especially if you have a friend who's pregnant and she's out and about. Oh, my friends gave me a shower. Oh, I went and had my, a pedicure. And you're like, I'm home. It's horrible.
Or even in the hospital.
I didn't even. I've
on bed rest in the hospital.
And let's just take the depression further because you're in the hospital. You're not even home, and that's especially hard for women who have an older child. You may have a toddler. You have a school-age child that you're not seeing every day, or even if they're bringing the child in, Mommy, when are you coming home? Which let the tears begin. So. It's really a really difficult process. I mean, needed, I would never say, don't go on bed rest, don't do it. But it's hard.
Darling, let's talk a little bit about what can moms on bed rest do to set up the right support systems and to try to mitigate some of the physical and emotional challenges.
Well, first off, I want to say to moms, do not be afraid to ask for help. One of the things I hear so many women that I work with say is, well, I don't want to keep asking people. Well, if you're on bed rest at, say, 28 weeks, that's a whole 12 weeks that you are going to be, well, hopefully, we're thinking positively for term, but a whole 12 weeks that you're going to be on bed rest that you're going to need help. And you have to ask because so often people really don't know what you need. And so I recommend always some sort of virtual calendar, schedule, something. There are multiple things online, or, maybe your husband wants to set up a spreadsheet, or, how you do it really isn't important. But I prefer that it not have to come from the mom because she's got enough to think about just trying to stay healthy, stay calm, and, nurture this baby. But, then she can kind of hand that off to someone. And oftentimes a friend who's, really computer savvy would be thrilled to do this because they don't know what to do. And so it gives them that hands-on thing that they can actually do. And you can create some sort of spreadsheet or, program or account wherever. And then people can often either call the gatekeeper person or go in directly and just schedule themselves for whatever it is. And that way the mom can kind of put down, I need laundry pickup or childcare or somebody walk my dog or take my dog to the vet. She can put it all in there. And then she doesn't have to feel like she's imposing. Because if you can do it, you sign your name. If you can't do it, you move on to the next thing. And I think it takes out that kind of, I feel bad for asking. I feel bad because I don't know what you need and I'm not doing anything. So that's, I think, the first thing. For other people. In terms of mom, I think this is a time mom really needs to do like radically intense self-care. And for most women, this is a radically new concept because they're so used to doing for everybody else. And they really need to do for themselves. So, again, you can kind of link this with the care spreadsheet or whatever. If somebody wants to send mom a pedicure, a massage is like God, because you have to remember she's stuck in bed. She can't go anywhere and she's getting, she's very limited with the different positions that she can be in. Someone to go in and just maybe, give her a good styling hair. For some women, they're not allowed to shower. So if you will go in and like wash her hair for her, she would be really loving you. So it's those things that just make you feel good, that make you feel special, that you would normally do that now mom can't do. Likewise, I do tell women to kind of stay off Google because that's enough to make you crazy because you start Googling, what did my doctor say I had? And then they start reading all the different things. So stay off of Google. Stay away from really trying to research what's best for you too much. I mean, I understand women want to know. So if you have preeclampsia, for example, I can understand wanting to know kind of the broad brush strokes. What is this? Why is this important? But if you really start getting nitpicky, you can drive yourself crazy. And then, oh my God, am I getting HELP syndrome? Am I doing this? What is going on? So I try to steer women away from that and to really kind of focus more on, okay, how am I feeling today? If you're feeling down, okay, I'm having a blue kind of day. What do I need to do to flip that? Do I need to have somebody come visit me? Do I want to just be alone? Do I want to read a book? Do I want to knit, crochet? What is it that will help you take your mind off of that? And again, there are so many things. Like I've heard women, they make these incredibly gorgeous scrapbooks for the baby, and that's amazing to do. A lot of women start online blogs, they start video blogs, and so anything that you want to do like that this is the time to be creative. You've got a ton of time. Go for it.
If there was a book you've always wanted to read,
or a book you always wanted to write,
book you want to write,
movies, Netflix is your buddy. Any type of thing like that. The video streaming. There are people who do video games, and they're like top of the leaderboard, and go for it.
And then I think really important, the exercise you mentioned earlier, and working that exercise in throughout their day of the simple things like wiggling their toes and doing some rotation of their arms and shoulders and stretches. I think there's even some yoga poses that are practical for sitting in the bed and breathing.
And breathing and meditating and, kind of calming down and not thinking the worst, which is kind of the way of the mom on bed rest at times.
And I would think nutrition would remain very important during bed rest, even more so now.
It is. And I'm a little cautious with that because, unfortunately, it's almost counterintuitive. A lot of women on bed rest aren't gaining the way they should be doing. So I'm almost kind of hesitant to say, watch your diet, because a lot of them aren't gaining the way they need to gain. I guess the best thing to say about that is always make sure that you're eating really nutrient-dense foods. It would be really easy to kind of hang out on bed rest, chowing down on some chips and salsa, and maybe... It's not that bad. Chips and salsa, guacamole, and that's not bad some of the time, but you really want to make sure you're getting a good sources of lean protein, not too much simple carbohydrates, but the complex carbohydrates, your salads and things. But then it's a mixed bag, because if you eat a lot of grains and complex carbohydrates, you're going to have to go to the bathroom. So depending on what your bed rest restrictions are, that can become complicated. So I think making sure it's nutrient dense, easing off on the junk food, although, not totally, a little ice cream here or there is okay, whatever, but making sure that it's a well-balanced, broad-based diet. And if you're unsure, check in with your doctor and say, hey, should I talk with a nutritionist or dietitian? And because for women with like preeclampsia, with gestational diabetes, the nutrition component becomes very, very important.
Absolutely. I think definitely when you're talking about what questions should I be asking my doctor and what things I should be bringing up in my regular appointments, that nutrition should be up there with making sure you're drinking enough and eating the right foods and calories.
Yeah. And when you have different things, depending on why you're on bed rest, that's going to change. A woman on bed rest for pregnancy-induced hypertension is going to have slightly different nutritional needs than a woman with gestational diabetes versus a woman who maybe we're watching her kidneys for a different reason. And, so it's definitely important to check in with the doctor. And if they don't mention it, ask to have a referral to a nutritionist, because usually it's just one you need to really just kind of go through.
So I wanted to ask you, as far as doctors and nurses, what do you wish your doctors and nurses had have known to do to provide better support for you while you were on bed rest?
I wish, and I've actually told my doctor, I told her a whole lot of stuff after I had my daughter, but that they were really straight up with me. when I had my daughter, she ended up being a preemie. She came early, and everybody talked about, oh, she'll come out. They'll put her on your chest. It'll be, nirvana. The heavens will open. Angels will sing. She came out struggling. I struggled. We were both a hot mess, and they whisked her by my nose like a buffet meal and took her to the NICU, which is fine because she needed it. But no one had ever said to me, if you have your baby early, you should probably go to the NICU. It was never mentioned. Really, the thought of having her early, I thought about it because she just seemed to be rumbling. She really just didn't want to be in there. But we didn't talk about what would happen if she came early. And I think, and I asked my doctor later, and she said, well, I didn't want to seem negative. For me, it would have been much better if she had said, okay, we're at 24 weeks. If you had your baby today, XYZ would happen. Then at 26, 28 weeks, okay, if you had your baby today, XYZ would happen. Then when we got to 32 and 30, it might seem to them being negative or fatalistic or something, but it just blindsided me because everybody said the baby's going to room in with you and you're going to, sleep with your baby. And that's not what happened. In fact, she never roomed with me. I ended up going home without her, which is a whole, we could have a whole nother podcast about that one. And then, the times you spent in the NICU. So it was just never mentioned. And I don't think it's being negative to say, if your baby's born at 28 weeks, this is what's going to happen. And that's all you need to say. It doesn't have to be a long, drawn-out discussion. Just, this is what we would need to do. And we would do this to safeguard you and the baby and let it be. And that each one that the mom knows. But that was, I think, one of the things that just so blew me out of the water, really sunk me down.
Right, because you didn't know what to expect.
I didn't know what to expect. And then when I got to the NICU, I walked in and went to grab her. I was told I didn't scrub right and all this stuff. So there I'm holding my baby and all the little bells and whistles were going off. It was crazy.
Well, I definitely think it's important for them to get a tour of the NICU if it's offered. I realize a lot of moms might not want that, and that might be a little bit overwhelming, but I can promise you it's better to take that tour beforehand and be familiar with the sights and the sounds and what to expect if that is indeed offered to you.
Well, I have to say, Kelly, I think you have done a lot to make that, because when like when your son and my daughter were coming on, that wasn't offered in the hospital tour when I toured with my daughter. And I'm thinking back to when we toured when I was having my son, because I had him in a different hospital. I think we went by it and it was kind of like, this is the NICU. And that was better. Like my first go round, we didn't even go in that area of the hospital. So I'm thinking, I didn't even know where it was. It was like, I was on the second floor. She was on the 9th. It was really a disparate experience. So I do believe they at least take families by the NICU now, whether you go in or not. But I agree with you. I think you need to take a peek and
especially for moms who are on bed rest.
Yes.
If you're on bed rest and more than likely
going to deliver early.
Possibly. I don't want every mom on bed rest to think they're going to deliver early. But in most cases, if you're on bed rest, they will go ahead and say, we are going to, if at this point you go into labor, then you will have
Then you will have it.
Right.
Well, what's interesting is many women on bed rest end up being late, which I think is hugely hilarious, because
Wonderful.
Then they're writing me like, I'm at 41 weeks and we're still here. I'm like, well, that's a good thing.
So tell me a little bit more about Mamas on Bed Rest and Beyond. What kind of community outreach do you do, and what are the services that you provide?
Well, Mamas on Bed Rest, gosh, it's so, when I think about it, it's so much a part of me now. I really have to think about how, community outreach is really just me out there. I am constantly out there. Doing things like this. I love doing things like this, but health fairs, community events. This year I got to lobby before the Congress in Texas. I was like, whoa.
You did? What were you lobbying on?
We were talking about maternal mortality and how to improve birth outcomes. And why that's a huge deal here in Texas. But it's about really getting the word out that women need comprehensive health care throughout their childbearing years. And whether that be for bed rest, whether it be for NICU, we cannot kind of give this persona, if you will, of like the Gerber baby. And that, I think, was the thing that really came across to me after having my daughter, that TV and stuff is so not accurate. And I think it gives people this false sense of, like we're saying, the heavens are going to open up, the angels are going to sing. Or even now that I do a lot of birth work, that women are like, I'm afraid of the pain and, people screaming. And I kind of laugh because very few, if any of the women I have attended their births scream, because you're more like hunkering down. They're really getting kind of guttural. But they're not screaming. And even later, they'll say, well, it was painful, but it wasn't like, like I was expecting. It just kind of... So I think what I try to do when I'm out in the community is really say to people, skip the TV stuff. Don't watch that. And let's really talk about how we're going to modulate things for you. And many women are really surprised at how kind of earthy, that's the word that's coming, that birth is. It's really this, I guess it is primal, if you will, but it's not the screaming banshee swearing at your husband kind of thing. It's more of a woman kind of thing. Yeah. And they say, man, I felt really like strong and powerful. And so I really try to push that persona, because women on bed rest too can feel that. Women who even have C-sections can feel that, because you're bringing forth life. And there is a lot of power in that. We get kind of caught up in, was it a water birth? Was it a lotus birth? And, that's immaterial. You gave birth. And when you think about it, and when you look at that little person who has like 10 fingers, 10 toes, perfect little fingernails, perfect little eyebrows, and to think that your body made that really, I think, is so transformative for women, that I try to push that forward and really talking about how strong women are. Because like, oh, I can't do it. I can't do it. I'm like, no, you really can. And that's a lot of my community work right now. Just kind of undoing the drama of TV.
I applaud that very much. And I have to say, anytime I see things depicted about the NICU now, that's something that I can't watch, because very seldom is it very realistic.
Exactly.
So from the women that you've worked with that have been on bed rest, are there any common problems for them after having the baby?
The biggest thing I see with women is they try to jump back into life too soon. You have to remember, if you've been on bed rest any more than, say, 2 weeks, you have lost some muscle mass, you've lost some endurance, and you've lost some agility. So you have to kind of creep back into your normal activities. Many women, especially women who have older children, their first thought is, okay, I'm off bed rest, I'm going to play with my toddler, and then they find themselves wiped out. They find themselves pulling a muscle. They find themselves I went to go upstairs and I was so winded. And it's like, but you haven't been upstairs in 17 weeks. So I say to women, for every couple of weeks you've been on bed rest, you have to give yourself time to get back to your normal activity level. So say a woman's been on bed rest 12 weeks. I would say you need to give yourself 6 to 12 weeks to get back to your regular activity level. And in the meantime, hang out with your kids, breastfeed, eat. Definitely walk, because you want to build back up. But don't go home and try to clean your house. I see women do this, and then they come to me like, I pulled a stomach muscle, or I had a C-section and I popped a stitch. And I'm thinking, why? Vacuuming? Because trust me, the dirty house fairy has never visited my home, and the dirt that is there is always there whenever I come back. It's not critical. You don't have to vacuum today. You don't have to vacuum for the next 6 weeks. And trust me, it'll be there when you come back. But they're so wanting to get back. And I understand wanting to reclaim control, but don't do it at the expense of your body. You have to allow for the fact that your body has been out of commission for, however many weeks. And the biggest thing, the other thing is, and I do understand this one, is moms who then go and pick up their toddlers. Mm-hmm. You got a 30-pound toddler and you haven't been lifting anything. Mm-hmm. That's a back strain right there. And I say to them, sit down and have your toddler crawl into your lap. They can usually do that. And it's so intuitive. You see your kid, you just go and grab them. But if you've not been lifting and doing and moving, and yet that's a back strain waiting to happen. And then you're back on bed rest. And so, take it slowly. Don't worry about the laundry in the house and let people continue to care for you for 30, 40 days after you give birth.
Just as they would have if you had not been on bed rest.
Exactly.
Right? Don't stop asking for help now.
Don't stop asking for help. I know you're excited. Do take the light walks, walk around the block, baby in the stroller. You do not have to go fast, but keep it slow. Build gradually.
So once you've had a pregnancy in which you had to have bed rest, would that be typical for any subsequent pregnancies? Would you expect to have bed rest every time?
It depends on why you were on bed rest the first time, because the answer is no. After my daughter, I have a son, and I was on modified activity restriction, I guess is what they called it, but I wasn't on bed rest. And I couldn't because I had this 3-year-old and I had a husband who was traveling internationally, and I said, hey, she can't drive and she can't cook. And really, comparatively, that was like easy pregnancy. I was larger than life, but I didn't have anything. I mean, as much drama as I had with the first one, I had like nothing with the second one, which was like, what is that about? And it was like the luck of the draw. His was so easy. So it doesn't mean that has to happen. Now, if I had maybe preeclampsia, that is more of a predisposition to having subsequent preeclampsia or gestational diabetes. But, my daughter was just fussing to get out. She was just like, I'm coming early. And that, my son, he might be in now if we hadn't gone and gotten him. So that's the difference. But when you have something like something like placenta previa, it's really pretty random that the placenta is presenting first. Not at all indicative it's going to come in subsequent pregnancies.
Excellent. Well, I want to leave them with some very positive thoughts. So if you were sitting there holding their hand as they're entering their 3rd, 4th, 5th week of bed rest, what would you want to say to them?
First of all, you can do this. And secondly, remember, on the scheme of your life, when you consider the fact that most women will live, what is life expectancy now? Something like 86 or something. And I think it's 84 for men or whatever. This is like a little tiny blip. And, you may feel in the moment, I totally get it. In the moment, it feels like an eternity. It feels like this is forever. But when you look over the course of your life, the 86 or 88 years, I think of my aunts who lived to be like 92 and everything. 10 weeks on bed rest really isn't that long. Now, I don't want to minimize it. I don't want to trivialize it. But I would say, and I do say to women, when you really look at it, it's not even really like a full semester at school. Or when you try to put it into context, maybe it's not even a school year, or maybe it's not even a summer vacation. When you can look at it like that, then you can go, oh, yeah, I can do that. I can do that because
maybe just focusing on the next day.
On the next day of the whole thing.
Let's get through one more day. Because each day is a victory. I had
said
that before, that for every day that the baby stays inside, that is
it's a huge victory. And the thing is, if you can find pleasurable ways to spend your days, it really will go by more quickly and more easily. If you're sitting there like, oh my God, I got to be here on bed rest. Oh my God, that doesn't go very well. But if you can think, well, I'm going to take this 6, 8, 10, 12, whatever weeks, and I'm going to make a baby blanket, or I'm going to write and journal, or whatever it is you're going to do, then it's almost, I don't want to say a game, but it's like, I have this purpose to do. I have this thing I'm doing, and it's a lot easier. And then when, again, thinking about it, like, then you're thinking, oh, if I'm writing this book, I only have 10, then it's only have, and it changes your focus. But really to think that I can do this, and, for the rest of my life, I will have this little person who will become a big person, and all of the memories and things that you can make with this person. So, I try to get women to think about it in more of a small slice of life type of thing, as opposed to, oh, it's this horrendous thing. It's a little small slice of life that, like you're saying, you take each day at a time. You can even, and the other thing that is really good is to plot out, what do you want to do each day? Have yourself on a little schedule. Like if you're making a blanket, I want to get to the blanket to such and such a size by this date. And, map things out, map your projects out, and do that, because you will see the time, while it feels long because you're waiting. It's like waiting for Christmas when you're a kid. It actually is very brief when you look at it in terms of like your entire life, or, your entire pregnancy or whatever. And then when you have the child, it's really brief.
Thank you so much for that perspective. Really appreciate it, especially knowing you've been there personally and then professionally have walked so many women through. So we will definitely put links to your website and resources on our website with the podcast, and just appreciate you being here and being a part of it. Thank you, Darline.
Oh, thank you for having me.
In order for NICU babies to thrive after discharge, they need smart, informed parents who understand their needs and are emotionally and physically capable of caring for a medically fragile child. Peer-to-peer support is an effective tool for helping parents navigate their NICU stay. Support from a caring and informed NICU graduate parent helps a new family feel more capable, confident, and ready to face the journey ahead. To request support, volunteer, or donate, please visit our website at handtohold.org.